Hello, সবাইকে. Welcome to another series where we will be tackling this poem titled Paris by Hope Mirrlees. I hope I'm not butchering their name. Hope Mirrlees. Let's go, guys. I'll not be reading out the poem directly. I will be directly going to the analysis of the poem. So I hope you get it. Okay. So what Paris is, what the poem is, and what it is not. Also, this poem is a part of my syllabus titled Idea of the Modern, part 2 for me. Sorry for the burp. So Paris is definitely not a descriptive poem. It is not a travel poem. It is not a lyrical celebration. It is not a narrative with a speaker and story. Okay. So whatever we expect in a poem, it is not. It is not a descriptive poem. It is not a travel poem. It's not a lyrical celebration. It is not a narrative with a speaker and story. Paris is a modernist city poem. Okay. So Paris is a modernist city poem. A sensory map of Paris, a collage of perceptions, a poem that records how consciousness moves through a modern city. Paris is not a descriptive poem. Paris is not a travel poem. Paris is not a lyrical celebration. Paris is not a narrative with a speaker, with a story, okay, and story. Paris is a modernist city poem, a sensory map of Paris, a collage of perceptions, a poem that records how consciousness moves through a modern city. Mirrlees is not asking what does Paris mean. She is asking what does Paris do to a mind that walks through it. So Hope Mirrlees through this poem is not asking what does Paris mean. She's asking that what does Paris do to a mind that walks through it. Let's go to the historical context which we require to understand, which we require to know to understand this poem better. First point, World War I. This poem is written during World War I. Paris is under threat, of course. Anxiety, exhaustion. War is not dramatized. It exists as an undercurrent, like a low vibration. This restraint in showing war is ethical. No heroics, no nationalism, no glorification of war, which makes this poem so different, right? So the historical context is it's written during World War I. Paris is under threat, anxiety, exhaustion. War is not dramatized. It exists as an undercurrent, like a low vibration. This restraint is ethical. No heroism, no glorification, no nationalism. No heroism, no glorification, no heroism. Okay, no heroics, no nationalism, no glorification. Point number 2, modernism. Mirrlees anticipates Eliot's The Wasteland, which is going to soon follow. Eliot's The Wasteland, cinematic montage, cubism, stream of consciousness. Key modernist principles in the poem are fragmentation, simultaneity, sensory overload, collapse of past and present. So Mirrlees anticipates Eliot's Wasteland's stream of consciousness method, cubism, cinematic montage. Cinematic montage of Eliot's Wasteland, cubism, stream of consciousness. Key modernist principles in the poem is fragmentation, simultaneity, sensory overload, collapse of past and present. Fragmentation, simultaneity, sensory overload, and collapse of past and present. Point number 3, the most important method which Mirrlees uses is perception, not description. This is where everything, okay, fits. The poem records what the eye catches, what the ear hears, what memory interrupts, what history intrudes. The poem is structured like walking. Okay, train travel, urban distraction. There is no stable I explaining things calmly because I has been finished. So this is where everything makes sense. The poem records what the eye catches, what the ear hears, what memory intrudes, what memory interrupts, what history intrudes. The poem is structured like walking, train travel, urban distraction. There is no stable I explaining things carefully, calmly. So perception replaces narration in the poem. Okay. Point number 4, the sensory experience. Okay. Paris is loud, crowded, noisy, and overwhelming. Mirrlees builds this through Kiki দিয়ে বুঝাচ্ছে that Paris is loud, crowded, noisy, and overwhelming. Paris is loud, crowded, noisy, and overwhelming. Mirrlees builds this through a sound. Snippets of speech, chants, mechanical rhythms, religious murmurs, advertisements, nonsense syllables. Okay, the example is central and exam worthy. Okay. From Aristophanes' The Frogs. Okay, I remember this. Originally, the sound of frogs in Greek comedy. Here, it mimics the metro train rumbling under the CNN. Ancient theatrical sound, okay, becomes modern machinery. So the ancient sound of, coax from Aristophanes' Frogs, this is an ancient theatrical sound, but it is used in a modern machinery. This does 3 things at once. Makes us hear the city, collapses the ancient Greece into modern Paris, and shows how myth survives as echo, no longer meaning, because coax was the frog's sound. But now it is used as a rumbling of the metro station, right? Metro train rumbling under the Siene. So, makes us hear the city, collapses ancient Greece into modern Paris, shows how myth survives as echo, not meaning. So, the rumbling of Paris is first shown through sounds, snippets of speech, chants, mechanical rhythms, religious murmurs, advertisements, nonsense syllables. Okay, so Paris speaks in borrowed noises from ancient Greece. Number 2, visual overload. So number 1 is sound, number 2 is visual overload. Statues, shop signs, museums, crowds, monuments, churches, nothing is longered over. Everything flashes past in a jiffy. When you're walking, you don't stand and stare at some particular thing. When the train is moving, you can't make the train stop and make it look at one thing. So it all happens in a jiffy, very, very fast. So nothing is longered over, everything flashes past. Right. Number C, physical movement. The poem moves like walking, stopping, turning corners, entering trains, drifting into churches or museums. This kinetic quality matters. The poem is in action by itself, okay? It's not in a static condition. So physical movement, the poem moves like walking, stopping, turning corners, entering trains, drifting into churches or museums. This kinetic quality matters. 5th, structure, a day in the city, okay? The poem loosely follows morning to afternoon to evening, but time is unstable, memory intrudes, history interrupts. This is experienced time, not clock time. Yes, it shows the movement throughout the day from morning to afternoon to evening, but time is unstable, okay? Memory intrudes, history interrupts. This is experienced time, not clock time. It's not going according to the clock. Point number 6, language as city material. Mirrlees mixes English, French, Latin, slogans, brand names, official notices. Important point is French is not translated. This recreates the feeling of being inside the city. Meaning is partial, overheard, fragmented. Language becomes urban noise rather than pure sense. Language no longer makes pure sense, okay? It becomes urban noise, something you will probably overhear, something you can only hear in fragments, okay? Something which is not being translated to you, because if you are in Paris, you will have to hear French, even though you don't understand it, right? So French is not translated. This recreates the feeling of being inside the city. Meaning is partial, overheard, fragmented. Meaning is partial, overheard, fragmented. Language becomes urban noise rather than pure sense. Point number 7, myth, history, and the modern city. Paris is layered with Roman Gaul, Christian saints, Greek myth, Renaissance art, revolutionary France, but these appear as museum objects, statues, names, ghosts. History is not alive, it is sedimented, stored. You can see, but they are dead, they are no longer alive. Paris is layered with Roman Gaul, Christian saints, Greek myth, Renaissance art, revolutionary France, but these appear as museum objects, statues, names, ghosts. History is not alive, it is sedimented. Point number 8, religion and ritual. Catholic imagery is everywhere in the poem. Churches, saints, Virgin Mary, processions, but faith feels habitual, institutional rather than transcendental. Like the main essence of religion is lost, as if people are just following religion because of habit and because their institution asks them to. It is empty of any transcendental essence. So Catholic imagery is everywhere. Churches, saints, Virgin Mary, processions, but faith feels habitual, institutional, emptied of transcendence. Religion becomes another urban system like transport or commerce. Religion becomes another urban system like transport or commerce. It has become one of the urban systems, one made for money. Now, oh. Point number 9, capitalism and modern life. Advertisements and commodities appear without commentary, like food, shops, slogans, consumer language. This neutrality is deliberate. The poem does not condemn, it exposes saturation. That advertisements and commodities no longer need commentary because there are way too many of them. You can't give commentary on each one of them, right? So advertisements and commodities appear without commentary, like food, shops, slogans, consumer language. This neutrality is deliberate. The poem does not condemn, it exposes saturation. Point number 10, the female dimension. Very important, very crucial. Mirrlees' modernism is distinctly female. How? Attention to domestic spaces, ritual rather than heroism, memory rather than conquest. Yes, revolutionary France, but it is sedimented. Ethics rather than triumph. Paris often appears as maternal, virgin-like, enduring, bearing history, and suffering quietly. Mirrlees' modernism is distinctly feminine. Attention to domestic spaces, ritual rather than heroism, memory rather than conquest, ethics rather than triumph. Paris often appears as maternal, virgin-like, enduring, bearing history, and suffering quietly. Mirrlees' modernism is distinctly female. Attention to domestic spaces, rituals rather than heroism, memory rather than conquest, ethics. Attention to domestic spaces, heroism rather than rituals rather than heroism, ethics rather than triumph, memory. Okay, attention to domestic spaces, rituals over heroism, memory over conquest, and ethics over triumph. Paris often appears as maternal, virgin-like, enduring, bearing history, and suffering quietly. Point number 11, war as a silent pressure. War is present as monuments, death, national memory. Restrain. The city continues functioning. That continuation itself is haunting. That how could you? right? War is present as monuments, death, national memory. War is present as monuments, death, national memory, restrain. War is present as monuments, death, national memory, national memory, restrain. War is present as death, national memory, restrain, and monuments. War is present as monument, death, national memory, restrain. The city continues functioning. That continuation itself is haunting. Point number 12, ending. There is no meaning, only continuation. The poem does not resolve. The city closes shops, darkens, keeps moving. Modernity offers experience without revelation. The poem does not resolve. The city closes shops, darkens, keeps moving. Modernity offers experience without revelation. Paris is a modernist poem that recreates the sensory, historical, and psychological experience of moving through a modern city where sound, sight, memory, myth, and war coexists without hierarchy or resolution. There is no hierarchy, there is no resolution. It is just a modernist poem that recreates the sensory, historical, and psychological experience. Okay. Paris is a modernist poem that recreates the sensory, historical, and psychological experience of moving through a city, moving through a modern city where sound, sight, memory, myth, and war, where sound, sight, memory, sound, sight, myth, war, and memory, sound, sight, memory, myth, and war coexist without hierarchy or resolution. There is no hierarchy here, and there is no resolution here. They're all together. Move through a modern city where sound, sight, memory, myth, and war coexist without hierarchy or resolution. Okay. So that was the lecture on Paris by Hope Mirrlees. I will expect you all to read the poem by yourself and then go through this video, or maybe go through this video first and then read the poem for a better understanding. I will not read the entire poem with you because let's face it, poem is something which you should read by yourself. So read it and I'll continue later on again. Okay, but if you all do want the PDF of the poem, do let me know. I'll answer to you all. Take care. Bye.